Hi guys, I'm Hannah and we're back on my allotment for another week's vlog. Let's see what I got up to. Well, summer has finally arrived. It's too hot to sit in the greenhouse and film this. It's late afternoon, Thursday, and yeah, I'm boiling. So, drinking a kombucha. It's one of my favorite things, especially raspberry flavored. Definitely a treat. And eating some pombers, definitely also a treat. And the reason why I'm treating myself is because I had my first vaccination today. Yes, I'm really happy about that. So I'm based in Oxford, of course, so I felt like I should have had the AstraZeneca one, especially since the company's part Swedish originally. The Astra part is Swedish, but I guess for my age I got given the Pfizer one, so feel fine, but I've taken it easy today just in case I get some flu symptoms or something. So just chilling and filming this vlog for you guys. So the weather's been a little bit pants up until today, I guess. Had all that rain, right? And of course my beds in my original area where I've mulched the paths with plastic have obviously been riddled with slugs. And yeah, I decided to plant my lettuce there, which is great. But it's actually been okay. I think I've been out 3 nights picking slugs, but the rest of the nights I just couldn't be asked. So they've been doing okay. There's still some damage, but there's always damage. There's always slug damage on lettuce, on the outer leaves. As long as they don't take the plant, I'm happy. That's with any pest. As long as I get to eat the majority of what I grow, I'm okay with it. So the weather has definitely been in favor of the slugs though, in terms of they like to grow in cooler springs with a lot of rain. So they are absolutely ginormous. So last week I planted out my spring onions in between them, and now I've started properly picking lettuce to eat as well. I saw one of the purple spinach rubino, the red veined spinach, has bolted. I don't know why, it's really silly. Like, I guess it just responds to the light levels rather than the temperature. It's definitely had enough water and it's not been too hot, but it's still bolted. So, but that's just one of them, so that's okay. But yes, I'm picking the lettuce, and one of them, this really, really curly, deep purple one, is my absolute favorite. So it's a part of a mixed bag, so I don't actually know the name of it, and it's from Real Seeds, and they actually do this mix, sell you this mix full of varieties that don't actually have names yet. So if you want to have that specific one, you're gonna have to save the seeds from it. So it's a bit of a challenge. I might do that. I might. So what you can do, once they bolted and you need the space in the bed for something else, you can actually dig it up and pot it up and wait for the flowers to develop that way. And it might actually be easier in that you won't have it dropping all the seeds like all around where it is. So if you take it out, you can move it about, and you know, there's a bit more control over the whole process. So I might actually do that, take that as an opportunity this year to collect some lettuce seeds. First time for me. This rain has also led to like the explosive growth or bulking up of my turnips. Like the Milan whites are just like, they're really getting big now, a little bit too big. And I just picked 3 the other day to have in like a chicken stew. And I noticed again, like every year, there's some superficial damage. I think it is the cabbage fly maggot, which is something I have in the beds, and they do go for my Swedes sometimes, but specifically they go for the radish and for the turnips. And if you don't pick them before they get too big, you can see there's more and more damage, right? So they're a fly that you can keep off your crops with mesh, but if they were there last year, they will overwinter in the soil and attack your crops under the mesh. So it's a little bit risky. I think they can attack your roots of other brassica plants as well, or I know for a fact they can, but the problem isn't that bad here, that doesn't happen. I rarely lose brassica seedlings. If I do, it's usually a leather jacket or something like that in the soil when you dig around. I've never seen the maggots on the seedlings, but I do know they can go for that as well if it's really bad where you are. So if you lose seedlings, maybe that's one thing to consider. And importantly, the turnips were still good to eat, so they just needed peeling, which is unfortunate because I hate peeling vegetables. So as you have hopefully seen at your end as well, the weather is finally warming up and it's the big time now to plant everything out. So I got quite a few of them done. So first of all, my multisown beetroot, which I really should have planted out ages ago. They were in those tiny CD60 modules, right? But I finally got them out. I'm growing a few varieties, so that's Bolt Hardy, the candy striped, what's it called? Chodja? Something like that. Anyway, the candy striped one, the golden one, which is absolutely beautiful, and Cylindra, which is like a more cylindrical shaped, goodness me, it's warm now, cylindrical shaped beetroot, which is just another red one, and I quite like that one actually. I prefer that one to the Bolt Hardy, but the Bolt Hardy just feels more reliable. And yeah, sometimes you just want a regular sized or shaped beetroot of the typical color, and that's it. So they've all gone out. It's probably way too many. I've thinned the clumps down to only 3 or 4 seedlings per clump, because otherwise I know from experience that they don't grow to size and they just outcompete each other. So it's better just to thin them at this point. I also planted out my chard, so I'm growing a few new varieties to me, which are some giants and some pink and some white and some yellow, mainly because I really enjoy seeing the plants like at their prime. They're just gorgeous, so I'll see how they go. They might bolt in summer before they get to that very nice shapes, and I'm probably going to sow them again to go into the autumn. We'll see. Depends a little bit. But otherwise, I'm not a great chard eater, so I've only grown 2 of each just in case I lose some to slugs, and I might have to thin them out because it's just way too much chard. But we'll see. I don't have chickens, because I know people with chickens, they feed theirs to chickens, right? And chickens love it, but I don't have chickens. We're not allowed chickens here. Though I do know the neighbors have chickens, so maybe I can hand some over to them if it gets way too much. And then I got my sweet corn in the ground as well. So I've had one hell of a headache with that, right? Because I'm growing 3 varieties of sweet corn and then 1 variety of glass gem corn, which is a flint corn. And so because corn is pollinated through wind, and they can easily cross-pollinate, you sort of need to grow them at as far apart as you can so that you don't get cross-pollination. However, I was in discussions with someone on Instagram, and they say it's only a problem if you're going to save the seeds. So like with most things, like with squash for example, it won't affect the fruit that year, but if you were to save those seeds, the genetic material inside the seed will be a mix of the 2 or 3 in this case, or 4. So that would obviously not be a great thing, but but if that's true, and I'm gonna try it this year, that it's not a problem the first year, it will be very clear from my little experiment, because I'm growing my 3 varieties next to each other in like a grid of, I think, rows of 4, and I have then Tramont, which is just a regular yellow color, quite a late variety, and then I have a double red, right, which is a deep red, almost like red velvet color, and then a bicolor, which has 2 white and yellow colored kernels or cobs. So it would be very clear if it was a problem this year, you know, because the colors would be off. So we'll see. And because the Tramont is late, that one might not pollinate with the other ones. We'll see. So it's a bit of an experiment this year. I won't put the glass gem corn there because that's a flint corn, and I definitely don't want that one, because that one will affect flavor for sure. And I definitely don't want that, so that one's gonna grow somewhere else. I've not planted that one out yet, but it's that one is also quite late, so it might not be a problem. But I don't want to take that risk. That's just one risk too far, so we'll see. I'm hoping that it will all be edible and we'll enjoy it, so we'll see. I might sow some more because the germination on the Tremont and the bicolor was not as good as I wanted, and I'm a little bit worried that my toddler won't like to eat the deep red, the double red, sorry. Because it's a different color, right, kids? And by all accounts the flavor is not as sweet, so I might want to just re-sow a few more. And you can re-sow them, and you can direct sow them from now, I'd say, because it's warmed up enough in the soil, and we're gonna have pretty warm temperatures now at the weekend, so it might be good to get them in now, and then they'll bake in the sun and germinate fine. And if you do direct sow them, always put 2 seeds in per planting hole and then thin them after, just to make sure you have a nice grid of them growing. So I planted those out a few days ago now, and it was still quite cool. I would think it was like highs of 10 or 12, and it was still quite windy. The storms we had was, you know, and the worst thing for newly planted seedlings is cold wind, and especially for like sweet corn. So I fleeced the sweet corn, and because they were planted so close to the beetroot got covered as well. So it's definitely time to remove it today, and I actually forgot to do that, so I'm gonna do that before I go in, because yeah, they will have baked under there. Hopefully it's still wet enough that they won't have dried out, but yeah, I definitely don't want to leave that on now. And any other fleece that you've got on is definitely time to remove that now. So I've got fleece on my onions as well, so I need to swap that for mesh so that they don't cook in there, and just a little bit more ventilation. Still need to keep out those allium leaf miners, eh? I'm growing a few varieties of peas, and again, they have been loving this weather. All bar one, which is a beautiful one, heritage one called Rosa Corona, which has like white and red flowers. I'm really excited about, as everything I'm growing. I did not give it support to climb up when I planted them out, and they've been just lying sort of on the floor, the top of the bed, waiting for me to give them something to climb up, right? And because they've been lying down, the slugs have had full access to them, and I've never had issues with slugs going after my peas that have been planted out, because usually they grow so vigorously, it's not a problem. Like, obviously they're there, but they haven't had the opportunity to almost kill them. But it has been this close to me losing some of those plants. So what I've had to do is tie them. I put supports in, but it was a bit too late, and they weren't climbing, so I had to tie them to the supports. So yeah, I'm not too happy about that. So it's just really stupid of me to do that. Gave the slugs an in, and then once they get munching, you know, they really love it, so then they come back for more. But I hope now that they can get growing now and outgrow the problem, especially if we get some more drier weather, and the slugs won't be as big a problem. But it's still, we'll have to wait and see. The other peas are growing super fast, and I need to tie them up again, like the alderman peas and the purple podded, can't remember now, can't remember what they're called now. I'll have to insert it, but they're growing like crazy. My Monch 2, less so. I have 2 varieties, and both of them are tall, but they're not very bushy, and I think I planted as many seeds of them as I did of the other peas, so maybe they just grow like that less vigorously, so we'll see. But yeah, they're getting ready to flower. I saw the first flower on my pea shoots, the peas I've planted for shoots, so they were sown in end of February, or oh, maybe it was January even. Yeah, end of January I think, so ages ago, right? So I've been picking the shoots, but if you don't pick enough, they will produce flowers and pods, right? So that's what's happened. So I could have waited and let it produce some pods from that and have my first pea, but yeah, I grow them for shoots, so I pick the shoots. The good thing about peas, growing peas for shoots, is that everything's edible though. So you can eat the shoots obviously, and you can eat the flower, you can eat the pods obviously. So it's quite a generous plant. However, that's only for, obviously, for garden peas. Like, don't eat the wild peas that you see growing out, like the vetch, for example, which is the parent plant. I think I saw somewhere that it is edible, but I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. So you can see it's a relative, because both to beans, broad beans, and to peas, and yeah, they're very, very exciting. You can see the flower, very similar. But yes, this family contains some dangerous ones, so be very careful. Obviously, it goes without saying. Do you guys like these? I love them. I mean, I know they're absolutely atrocious for you, but it's good as a treat. Oh, and they're obviously knockoffs from Aldi, but anyway, well, I have your attention. Please like this video, because, you know, it's really nice. If you enjoy it, if you like what I'm talking about, if you like me, give it a like, and it shows me and it shows YouTube that you enjoyed it. So why not? So because of the, I don't know, because of the rain we've had and possibly the cooler temperatures, I don't know, the broad beans have grown ginormous. Like, I've never grown broad beans that tall. So these are the autumn sown broad beans. They're aquadulture long pod, and they are a tall variety, and I think they're not abnormally tall or anything. It's just that I've never managed to grow them this tall. And I had the support made, right, of bamboo sticks and string. However, they're so big now and so wide, and with the wind and the wet weather, they were bending those bamboo sticks. It was just a matter of time before they were gonna snap. So I had to replace it now with some proper sturdy stakes. So finally I did that before it was too late. And then I moved the bamboo sticks over to the field beans that are next to. They're much shorter. They're like about half the size for now. They might get taller, we'll see. But I don't think so. We'll see. I might need to replace that as well. And the spring sown aquadulture long pod are also storming up now, so I might need to look into supporting them as well. We'll see. If we get any more windy weather, I definitely need to support them, but they should be able to stand up by themselves as well. It's just a risk if there's any wind, and if you're in an exposed site like this on an allotment, they can break, and then you don't get any beans on that. And interestingly, no black fly yet on my broad beans. So I've heard other people in London have had black beans. Well, they might have had black beans, but they have had black fly arrive on theirs. I've not seen mine yet, so I've not pinched the tops yet. So we'll see. That will obviously halt the growth up, and they will concentrate on the beans. So I might have to do that if they get any taller, because I don't have any taller stakes available to use. So there we go. And yeah, the rain, my god. The rhubarb has grown ginormous this year. So I inherited 2 crowns on this plot, and they were, I just discovered them, you know, in the grass. They were half dead, being suffocated by the turf that had moved in. So it'd been fallow for 5 years. So you sort of need to keep the weeds off the rhubarb, because the grass around here is too vigorous. It will just invade. But 3 years down the line, 3 winters of heavy mulching has seen them, the 2, just morph into one and producing these ginormous stalks, right, and leaves to go with it, to the point where they're too big really to use, right? If you don't pick them often enough, which I don't because there's too many, then they go on to produce these ginormous things. So I mean, it's good fodder for the compost, and that is a myth, by the way. You can definitely put rhubarb on your compost. So yeah, I mean, does anyone know any like amazing recipes I haven't tried yet? Send them my way. And some great news now in terms of, just in time for the summer to start. One of the first sweet pea flowers have appeared on the autumn sown one. It is a pink one, so I assume it's part of the color mix, because I don't have any other pink ones. And it smells divine, obviously. There's only 2 as of yet, so I haven't cut them off, but I might do. just to bring 2 in to put in the bathroom or something. So yes, we're getting there, and there's lots and lots of buds coming, so they're also gonna be exploding now, I think, with the sunshine. The spring sown are growing in their planted position, but we'll see. They're not climbing yet, so we'll still have a while to go with those. So don't worry if your spring sows aren't flowering yet. It's just my autumn sown. Oh, and this weather, man, the radish have, I mean, it's my fault. I should have picked them already. They're early spring sown, so it's not surprised really. They have grown way too big, really. Some of them are still edible, but some are, yeah. Yeah, too big really. But I did eat a few, and I still have a few more in the bed I'll pick now. So otherwise they'll go way too woody. But surprisingly though, they are massive, but they're still good to eat because of the water. So they haven't gone that hard and inedible yet, because they've had the access to the water. So there's still not a complete disaster, but yeah. So this is the last of the radish. I don't sow radish again now until maybe August, because the flea beetle damage is just so excessive here. Plus they don't produce a root that I like to eat in summer. That's just my personal preference, and yeah, they don't do very well, so yeah, we'll leave it there. Radish is a early spring vegetable for me. And I keep picking some asparagus, but they're still so slow. So hopefully now, with the soil warming up, they'll get going a bit more, because otherwise I'd be quite worried, thinking that they have not established well enough. So this is my 3rd year now, and it's the time for picking. And yeah, I want to have more than just like 3 at a time, because I have quite a lot of crowns planted. So I'm hoping they'll get going now, and we'll finally have an asparagus glut. Obviously they won't be at full capacity until like 5 years or so, but still, I was hoping for more this year. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I'll get more to pick. And I snap them off, right, with my fingers. I don't cut with a knife. So I don't think there's a benefit really to either. You just choose what you prefer. But it's just quicker for me with snapping, and then I don't have to have a knife handy, and you don't risk damaging the crown or any spears that are underneath the soil when you're cutting. And anyway, you know, you don't want to eat the woody bit at the bottom, so you can sort of feel that they snap where it's still edible. So what you've got, all of it's edible. So there's some concerns that I heard that the asparagus beetle lays their eggs right on the stem. However, I did not see that last year. I saw them, they arrived later, after the point where you've stopped picking, right? And then they go for the ferns, and they lay their eggs along the branches of the fern. You can see little yellow eggs hanging down, and then the grubs, they eat the foliage right once they've hatched. So I don't actually think that's true. Just leaving that little stump is not going to cause a huge outbreak in asparagus beetle. They will arrive fine once the ferns are growing and you've stopped picking, so don't worry about it. So annoyingly, I've been waiting for my big blousy red poppy to flower again, because it was so gorgeous, and I've been waiting for it, you know, I've seen the growth, it's been looking really healthy. And yesterday I came down to the plot, and I'm like, oh, this looks like some visitors been here. And I saw these deep like footprints in my flower bed, the flower mound bed. And it's obviously a deer, and it's eaten all the flower buds off the poppy. Just really randomly, like, it hasn't touched the broad beans, which are next to it. It hasn't touched any of the flowers. It hasn't eaten my peas or my fennel or, you know, nothing else but the poppy flowers. Thank you. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it, and it'll grow back, I'm sure, but it's so annoying. And the lupin is flowering as well, so that's beautiful. And the geum, and you know, I'm getting some color now, and can't wait to plant everything else out. So I know I did say potentially in my last vlog that I was gonna do all the tomato stuff this vlog. However, that will be this weekend's job. So I still have quite a lot of stuff in the greenhouses where the tomatoes are gonna go. A lot of flowers that I need to plant out. So that is the big job, and then moving on into the greenhouse, right? So we'll get there. So speaking of the greenhouse, I was looking at my chilies. All of them are now in the small greenhouse and they're fairly happy. I looked at the ones that moved out of the house the last, and well, they're suffering a little bit from sun scald, which isn't that surprising because they've been under these weak grow lights all their lives and then gone out to, you know, it's been overcast, but it's still enough for them to get a bit of a shock. And now it's getting sunny. I wanted to move them out to the greenhouse before we got the sun, so I think they're happy now, they're okay. But they just were not thriving as much as I thought, and I decided to, I'll just have a look at the roots, because I thought I saw a few flies buzzing around. And yes, I did see a little fungus gnat larvae there on the roots. It's not great, and yeah. So I had a massive problem with this, with my seedlings when they were in the house, which is quite common when you raise seedlings in your house during the early spring, winter, right? So I got nematodes, and it worked so well, you know, just one treatment, and then it immediately kills the fungus gnats in the soil. It's a predator, and it attacks the biological control, and it attacks the fungus gnats and leaves the plant fine. And I was like, oh my god, it's great! There's like, and I had sticky traps for the remaining adults, right? And the nematodes are effective for like weeks after, and then you're supposed to give a second treatment 4 weeks down the line. However, the fungus gnats were gone, so I was like, oh great, I don't need to give that last treatment, because it's a bloody nightmare. You have to like pre-water all the pots, and then you have to dilute all the nematodes, and then you have to like shuffle everything about, and then you have to water it with nematodes, and then you have to water again. It's just like, it's a big job, and it takes hours. And I just put it off and put it off and put it off. And then they were out in the greenhouse, and I thought, oh yeah, that is fine, right? It's fine. However, a greenhouse is good enough for a fungus gnat to thrive. So it's not a problem outside. Or once the seedlings go outside, it's not a problem anymore. There's enough predators to keep them in check, and the soil life in general has enough things to combat them becoming a problem. But obviously a greenhouse is a closed little system, and it's, yeah, long story, but they were there, and I was kicking myself. I should have just done the second treatment. So now they've got a foothold again, and the one I looked at, the roots were just not great, you know. They just were no root system there, so that's why they're not thriving. Anyway, so that was my job yesterday. I treated that whole greenhouse with nematodes, and then I finished treating this large greenhouse with all the, I thought, because I have extra, I'll treat all the flower seedlings in here, and the dahlias as well. Might as well, because I had it. Obviously I left it overnight, so I'm not sure how active they are, but it can't hurt, and they needed watering. So I had not watered my tomatoes since I potted them up, which is more than a month ago. And this is the amazing thing about vermiculite. They are fine because it holds so much water in that little microstructure of itself there. So the roots can find it, and they have been fine. And the same with the squash, surprisingly. And I did water the loofah once, and obviously chilies don't need much water, so yeah. But that made the problem so much worse, or the job so much harder, because then you really have to saturate the pots to make sure that the nematodes can survive. And because they were so dry, the compost in between the vermiculite was so dry, it becomes hydrophobic, you know, where it kind of pushes the water away. So it took a long time to just make sure they were wet before I could add the nematodes. So yes, that's why it was such a problem. But it's done now. It's done now, and I hope that it's all fine. And as a plus point, everything in there has been watered, because I was like putting that job off as well because I hate watering. But yes, so learn from my mistakes. If you're gonna go down the nematode route, give the 2 treatments for your fungus gnat problem. Don't just do one. Or, you know, if you're moving all your seedlings outside, then don't worry so much about it. Just give one. But if you're keeping them in a greenhouse, make sure you give the whole dose. I will probably have to give them now a third dose because I didn't give the second dose in a timely fashion. So there you go. That's another expense for you, for me. That's great. But yes, the dahlias. The dahlias are doing well, and I've had to top some of them. So you pinch out the tops of dahlias because it's not something you have to do, but as with many plants, it produces a bushier plant that produces more side shoots, which gives you more flowers. So the thing with dahlias, if you leave them to grow as they would normally, they produce one main thick stalk and a few flowers off the top of it. But those flowers kind of cluster together, so if you're going to use them for cuttings, for cutting flowers to put in a vase, you will just get one main stem with then lots of smaller flower heads on it, which is sort of not really what you want. What you want is a single flowers with those long stems, right? So that you can easily arrange them in a vase. So by pinching the tops, you wait until they've really got going, and there'll be the first little leaves, and then there'll be a second set of leaves, and you can cut above that, but I've gone off with the third set of leaves, and that means that it will then produce shoots from where those leaves meet the stem. It'll start shooting. And the other thing about dahlias to look out for, especially if you've got established tubers, is that you want to keep it to a maximum of 5 main shoots off each tuber, and that's because the smaller ones, it will just be too much for the tuber to produce. Depends a little bit on the size of the tuber, I guess. That's my guess. But if you're buying new ones, you definitely don't want more than 5 because it'll be too small to sustain that. The ones I've got from Old Tom, my plot neighbor, from his massive crown, they are shooting like crazy, so obviously they have a lot of stored energy in them. The ones I've bought don't have that many shoots yet, so yeah. But yeah, I'm really happy with the dahlias, seeing as I planted them up beginning of May. You know, they've done really well, and that's, you know, shows that you can wait, and it's never, you should never feel like it's too late in spring, because later sowings, later plantings can usually catch up with earlier, and they might be healthier because they're growing in proper sunlight and longer days and longer sun hours, which is what they need, right? So that's a lesson for next year. Wait a little bit longer and you'll be fine. But yes, it looks like we have a beautiful weekend ahead of us, and I have so many jobs to get on with. All of them involves planting out and sowing some seeds. I was supposed to sow in early May, but still haven't done. But yes, that's me set for the weekend, and that will be part of next week's vlog. So I will see you then. Have a great weekend, guys.